တရားရှုမှတ်ရမှာဘုရားအထောက်မှုဝိရိယအကြောင်းတွေပေါ့နော်
In the practice of meditation, ardent effort is what enables ardent effort to observe the presently arising object, to get the mind to reach the object, is a very important energy to develop. If one doesn't develop it, it won't be there. One has to actually produce it. And if our effort to observe the arising object isn't good, then the mind will be lax, and our virya will decrease. And then the states called kusita, hina virya, will arise. And then tina and meda, sloth and torpor, will overwhelm one. This is a state that makes the mind retracted. The mind just wants to take it easy when sloth and torpor are there. If that's the case, we won't be able to get the upper hand over the kilesas, the mental defilements, which have been following us throughout lifetimes. Sila keeps our physical and verbal behavior under control so that transgressive kilesas are not performed. But if we don't develop mindfulness, sati, then kilesas will enter in the mind, kilesas, the obsessive kilesas. So, to the extent that our effort to observe the arising object is weak or absent, to that extent, defilements, kilesas, will enter the mind. And then in 1 minute, 1 minute of not making the effort to note the arising object each time, there will be about 60 moments of the kilesas entering the mind. In 5 minutes, there will be 300 instances where kilesas are just entering the mind, one after another. And in 1 hour, there will be 3,600 moments where kilesas are entering one's mind stream. So, if one doesn't apply effort to observe the arising object, then kilesas enter the mind automatically. If the effort is there, though, to get the mind to observe the object every time the object arises, this effort closes the path to kilesas. It cuts off laziness, so it closes off the kilesas. And virya is the factor which can get the upper hand over laziness. When vitakka, aiming, is present, vitakka is the quality that is the opposite of sloth and torpor. So this makes the mind even better. It makes the mind fresh and open. Therefore, having effort and aiming to observe every arising object is an important task. This is why Sayadaw-ji has been speaking about it day after day. And those who practice according to the instructions realize why this is valuable. They are getting the benefits of the practice and they value effort. Today, Sayadaw-ji would like to speak about just how much value is added to our life due to making effort in the practice, and he will discuss this in terms of theory and practice. We human beings live in a world of the senses. We live in a world where there are many desirable sights, desirable sounds, pleasant smells, good things to eat, touch, pleasant mental objects. And except for the time we're asleep, we are experiencing these kama sense objects. If there's no control of the mind, then there will be greed arising full time. Or if we meet up with something dissatisfying, there will be anger. Living among humans, this is what happens. Those who don't like this situation look for a place that is free of this type of companionship. And this freedom, separation, is called viveka. There are three kinds of viveka, or solitude, it is sometimes called. One is kaya viveka. Two is chitta viveka. And the third type of solitude comes as a benefit of purity. And Sayadaw will speak about the third type later. So, seeking for a place that is free of people, of companions, looking to find kaya viveka. We search for a place that is free of companionship, especially a place that is free of one's own particular partner. And this is called asama, a place where one can work to put out the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, of lobha, dosa, and moha. And in such a place one gains kaya viveka. Yes, other people are there with you, but they are not people who give priority to sense pleasures. They are people who have a similar attitude of trying to gain freedom. So at this place, one has kaya viveka at a center like this. But having kaya viveka, physical solitude, if one can't control one's mind, then one's mind will be all over the place. So one will not have chitta viveka, seclusion of mind. And without chitta viveka, there will be no happiness, no mental happiness. So one needs a method for controlling the mind. And there's the method of samatha, and also there's the method that we practice here, which is vipassana. This is the method of observing at every arising, always guarding the mind. So when an object arises, we apply effort to reach the object and aiming. And with these two factors performed again and again, the mind comes to stick to the object. It falls collectedly on the object. In 1 minute, the mind is collected upon the object, sticking with the object, staying with it 60 times, let's say. And when the mind sticks to the object time and again like this, one has gained chitta viveka, seclusion of mind. The mind is free of lobha, greed, dosa, anger, and moha, delusion. This is because of coming to a place where one has kaya viveka, physical seclusion, and applying effort to observe the arising object and aiming. And doing this, we gain chitta viveka. Just as one needs to apply effort every time that a newly arising object occurs in order to make the mind stick to the object, so too the jhanic factor of aiming must also be present. Aiming is a jhanic factor, and this word jhanic means to focus, focus intensely, and to stick with the object. So when the rising arises, one makes effort to get the mind to the object, and the mind sticks. When the falling arises, one makes effort, aiming accurately to make the mind stick to the object. And doing this again and again, the mind comes to meet the object exactly. It becomes concurrent with the object, and as Sayadaw mentioned last night, it's as though it rubs against the object because it stays with it for the whole time. When the mind falls upon the characteristic of stiffness, the mind knows this, encounters stiffness. It rubs against the stiffness. When there's tension, the mind is concurrent with the tension. When there's movement or vibration, the mind is as though it's rubbing against the vibration. So this is the quality of vichara, the quality that stays in contact, that stays in contact with the object from beginning to end, as though it's rubbing against it. And this too is a jhanic factor. With the quality of vichara, or rubbing, one becomes definite about the object. There's no wavering, there's no indecision about what it was. So vitakka, or aiming, makes the mind fresh and open, and vichara makes the mind sure and definite. With these two factors occurring second by second, one has citta viveka. And doing this, one makes the mind free of nivaranas, the obstacles to concentration. It said, vivecheva kamehi. Kama, free, the mind is secluded from not only the desirable sense objects, but also the desire for these objects, the unwholesome mind. So when the mind is secluded, kilesas don't arise with regard to the desirable sense objects. When the mind is definite about the object, there's no doubt, there's no vicikecha about the object, no wavering. So in addition to, in order to get seclusion of mind, citta viveka, in addition to having physical seclusion, one needs to have aim as well as effort, because with aim, vichara arises. So it's also said, so that's why it's said, vivecheva kamehi, secluded from the desirable sense objects, and secluded from the sense desires that could arise regarding those objects. Kilesas have no chance to arise. Instead of kilesas, one has developed virya, effort, and aiming. So it is also said, vivecha akusalehi tamehi, that the mind is secluded from unwholesome dhammas, akusalas, that is, the unwholesome mind that is connected with lobha, the unwholesome mind connected with dosa. Because our aim is accurate, the mind comes to be concurrent with the object, rubbing against it. and then one is free of akusala, the unwholesome mind. One who understands this and applies the instructions, making the effort to observe each arising object and aim, one gets the benefits of doing this. One gains this secluded mind, and this benefit is not small, it is not insignificant. So these benefits come about due to virya, due to making effort to observe the object. And this is the value of virya. Just as when we are sitting, we need to always have ardent effort in order to observe what is arising in one's body, starting with the rising and the falling. So too, when we go from sitting to standing, we must make the effort and aim so that we can observe what is happening when it is happening. When we've come to a standing position, we need to observe what is happening in the standing, making effort and aiming. And when walking, lifting, moving, placing, each time the foot moves, we need to apply effort and aiming. We need to apply effort each time. And when we get to our room, we can't give up. We have to keep on applying effort each second of the time in order to observe what is happening. And when we lie down, too, the lying posture has to be observed. So as not to miss, also, one should tell oneself, I'm not going to miss a single thing, because this attitude will help one to note more and more. So one's observation needs to be active. One has to have active effort, not sluggish effort. And then what happens is called vivekajang piti sukhang. So it's said that vivecheva kamehi, vivecha akusalehi tamehi. So if one doesn't apply effort or aiming, then kilesas come in. But with these factors of effort and aiming each second, the mind becomes free of the nivaranas, the obstacles to concentration. The mind becomes clear and bright. This is what happens when we have citta viveka. This clear mind arises. Akusala, unwholesome mind states, are prevented from coming into the mind. So this clear mind comes because of seclusion, because of citta viveka. And following on this clear mind, there's joyous interest. This is delightful. And happiness, sukha. And tranquility. So where do these qualities come from? They come from our having come to a place like this, where we can put out the kilesas. And then, in order to develop seclusion of the mind, making effort and aiming in order to observe each arising object. So this is why piti and sukha, joy and happiness, are called vivekaja. They are born out of seclusion. They are created out of seclusion. So if one gets this benefit of joy and happiness coming from the secluded mind, one will be very interested in doing the practice, and one will be determined to keep on going. Later, sati becomes steadfast, and with this, knowledge begins to develop. One comes to see the nature of nama and rupa, stage by stage. And when one reaches the stage of mental development called bhavana, one's mental powers become very strong. So the benefits of virya, making effort to observe the object, are first of all, virya overcomes laziness. And following on virya, sati occurs. This blocks out the defilements called the kilesas. And samadhi occurs so that there's no more scattered mind. The mind is collected, unified. These are the benefits of the practice. And these benefits make one's value as a human being increase. In the world at large, starting from the time, looking at people of all ages, from newborns up until the very elderly, for the most part, what is happening? For the most part, people lack virya to dispel the kilesas. People lack the factor of aiming to keep the mind focused on the object. Without these two factors, kilesas are what will be happening, mental defilements. So, how will people be if they don't have any method, the way we do now, any method for putting out the fire of the kilesas? So what will happen with these people? Will their creator take responsibility for their defilements? Will the creator undertake to, no matter whether they do good or bad, will the creator take responsibility for them? The Buddha said that the only creator is we ourselves. We are the ones who make our own life. So the Buddha taught that instead of doing bad things full time, he taught that people should do good, beings should do good, and keep at least 5 precepts to keep our physical and verbal behavior clean. And he taught a method for controlling the mind. So with this method taught by the Buddha, the mind is not sluggish, it's active. So in order to have a mind that has sati, which sticks to the object, one applies effort every second of the time. And in 60 seconds, 1 minute, there will be 60 times of making this effort, this active effort. In 5 minutes, 300 times. And in an hour, 3,600 times. So making this effort time and again is development of the clean mind. And eventually, samadhi develops, collectedness of mind, and later, knowledge. In the world at large, this is missing. And consequently, the value of most people's life, if you look in terms of this, their value is very low. Their level of life is very low. Here, at this center, the yogis make the effort to observe every arising object and aim. So they follow the basic rule of Vipassana to note at every arising always guard the mind with vigilant mindfulness. And doing this, joy arises, first small and then growing and becoming happiness. Piti and sukha arise. To the extent that the mind is collected, piti or joy will arise. And later in the practice, one comes to realize a unique happiness that never gets boring, never gets old. At that point, one knows that there is nothing valuable in sense pleasures. And at that point, the Dhamma that one is practicing pulls one along. So one with virya, one who makes effort, steadfast, strenuous effort to observe time and again the arising object, who makes their mind free of kilesas through this effort. One day in the life of such a person is better than 100 years in the life of a person who makes no effort at all and who just dwells caught up with sense pleasures. And this is what the Buddha said, and one can evaluate this statement for oneself. The Buddha praised the one who cherishes and values the results that come from virya, who comes to a place like this and makes effort to observe the object time and again. The Buddha said, Yocha vasa satang jive, kusito hina viryo, ekahang jivitang seyo, virya marambato tanlang. So this means that one who dwells caught up in sense desires with a thick layer of laziness, even if that person lives for 100 years, because they make no effort, because they just dwell in laziness, their life is not as good as just one day in the life of a person who tries the way people are now to develop sati. People who value this work and who use virya to make their mind clean. Just one day in the life of someone who makes ardent effort, firm ardent effort, is better than 100 years in a life of one who dwells with a thick layer of laziness. So how good this effort is, how good it is. And when people understand the value of effort, have desire to gain the benefits and do the practice diligently, how satisfying this is to see. One can calculate for oneself. And when one tries to make the mind clean, make the mind free of kilesas, and is able to pull free of their gravitational pull, it's very satisfying to see. So Sayadaw will speak about this tomorrow. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.